Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. More Birthright here for you as we work our way through more of the non-human realms for the Voss territories. This one is Kal Kalathor, the largest and most populous goblin realm on Cerealia. Kal Kalathor does not defer to its neighbors or play the game of civilization practiced by goblin realms to the west. Though not as savage or brutal as their northern cousins, the Ice Goblins, the goblins of Kal Kalathor do not fear their human, elf, or Anshe neighbors. So it's considered neutral evil, and it's ruled by the great Khanate of Kal Kalathor. The realm and its holdings present a united front to the rest of Vosgard. Fortunately for the people of the Heartless Wastes, this unity is a carefully crafted illusion. In reality, Kal Kalathor's internal politics would baffle a Kanasi genealogist. Note, the names of Kal Kalathor's 14 provinces are taken from the names of 14 of the 37 existing goblin tribes in the land. These should by no means be considered the most prominent tribes of the land, since the fortunes of the goblin tribes rise and fall seasonally, and the provinces were named years ago. So we can see that off to the right there. Now, long before humans came to Cerealia during the humanoid wars, Kal Kalathor became a safe haven for goblin kind. Fleeing domination and extermination by the other races of Cerealia, goblins and hobgoblins retreated underground to the natural dirt and stone caverns of Kal Kalathor. Their leaders welcomed newcomers, fleeing subjugation by the elves, and cheerfully put them to work digging out new tunnels beneath the land. As more goblins and hobgoblins arrived in Kal Kalathor, a hierarchy was established. The older tribes forced the stragglers into service until enough newcomers formed a new tribe and established themselves. More new arrivals would form the next group of workers until they organized, and so on. Eventually, the arrival of new goblins ended, leaving a large population of goblin slaves without hope of betterment. Many wars were fought underground until an unusually wise goblin, or one fleeing the predations of his neighbors, and goblin history is hardly reliable, discovered the human newcomers to Cerealia at war with the elves. Using the we always butcher this, the Geli Sidhe, which is that hunt that the elves do, as cover. This inspired goblin chief captured many members on both sides of the fight, leaving the survivors to blame their known enemies, not the secretive goblins, and won accolades from his fellow humanoids. Using his new popularity, along with a judicious application of force, the goblin known as Kodznik became the first great Khanate of Kal Kalathor and leader of the now quote-unquote civilized tribes. He had the longest tenure of any great Khanate in Kal Kalathor's history, nearly 10 years. In the millennia since, Kal Kalathor has always had a great Khanate ruling over its many goblin tribes, though the position has lost much of its luster since those first golden days. So, it is a fairly massive territory. We'll take a look at the map next, but and as you can see, all things considered, fairly well settled, right? So we do have some lower level provinces, a couple 2s and 3s, and even a 1. But then if we look, right, there's several 4s, there's some 5s, in fact, 3 of them, and then an 8, right, which is huge, right? We almost never see that even in like Anweir. So to have that here is pretty impressive. The law seems to more or less be under, one control there, right? Temple situation, got a little bit of a mixed thing going on there, as with the guilds, and then the sources are also kind of split, but just a little bit. So, let's take a look at the first few things here. On the law side, the Great Khanate's chiefs control the established law holdings of Kal Kalathor, ruling in his name. Once a month, the Great Khanate hosts a council in the above-ground city of Kal Murthan. Those tribal leaders with enough influence and courage attend. There they feast, trade, and occasionally decide matters that will affect the goblin realm. On the temple side, with so many tribes of goblins and hobgoblins throughout the realm, should not surprise anyone that the goblins of Kal Kalathor worship a whole host of goblin deities, and rumor has it a few human ones. Gorin Split Tongue, level 6 priest, with a pretty major bloodline there, and strength there, 33. Although lawful, right? Evil, but lawful. Advocates the worship of goblin deities, but officially recognizes all his goblin congregation's needs. Not all high priests of the Shrine of Yellowfang have been so understanding in the past, which is partly why their painfully extracted fangs decorate the temple's ancient altar and his do not. Then, on the guild side, while individual goblins and goblin tribes accomplish much of the trading that goes on between Kal Kalathor and outside realms, two guilds do control all the official trade within the land. The Grasping Claw of Kal Kalathor specializes in acquiring and selling slaves, which would be human, dwarf, elf, and even other goblins. Their primary customer seems to be the other guild of Kal Kalathor, the Muckrakers, a guild operated by mostly by slaves. The Muckrakers grow and harvest the food that feeds the realm, both above and below ground. While it's true that much of this food gets sold to other realms through Kal Murthang's goblin market, enough remains in the land that all the influential or important goblins can feed their supporters. And then finally, for the other type of holding, sources. Not known for their wizards, the goblins of Kal Kalathor haven't paid much attention to their source holdings for many years. Recently, however, the always unusual Snagatroy tribe produced a wizard of some skill. Hogleg Fire Eyes, hell of a name. Level 5 wizard, though, which is nothing to sneeze at, and with a minor bloodline here, and neutral evil, is still learning her craft, but she has already developed a reputation of significance. So, and then the provinces here as well. The Great Khanate, a goblin chief born Crag Murfang, is a level 5 fighter and a major bloodline. Lawful evil rules all the provinces of Kal Kalathor, with the exception of the rebellious and uncontrolled Thruger and the intimidating Zerk. So, and we saw that on the holding breakdown as well. So, for the regent here, the post of Great Khanate has been an ancient position of power among the goblins of Kal Kalathor for more than a millennium, and the power of the individual who hold it does wax and wane as you would expect as the years pass, and also typical for goblins. So currently the Great Khanate has little power over his realm and must defer to his goblin and hobgoblin chiefs if he wants to survive. A great blustering fellow, though, Crag Murfang became the Great Khanate after successfully murdering 6 of his rivals. Unfortunately, Crag didn't rely on his own strength, cleverness, or stealth for these murders, but rather the skills of human assassins, or a human assassin known to Goblinkind only as Terror Knife. Then, when Crag refused to pay Terror Knife his full reward and threatened to set his newly acquired hobgoblin guards on the assassin, Terror Knife fled the land, but not before revealing that Crag no longer retained his services. So, the tribal chiefs then agreed not to kill Crag. Many actually gained their positions through Terror Knife's activities, in fact, but basically had little respect for the Khanate because of that. They advised him to pay close attention at their councils and do exactly what they said if he wished to remain in power, not to mention alive, so more like a figurehead. So, alrighty, so continuing on with that then. So the Great Khanate, as far as outsiders and most of his subjects are concerned, rules the most powerful goblin kingdom of Cerelia. He arranges the leasing of goblin mercenary companies and can apparently bring the weight of the kingdom's resources to bear on any enemy. However, unknowing of their leader's actual status, the goblin population of Kal Kalathor remains remarkably loyal to the Great Khanate as far as goblins go. Alone among goblin kind, they have an established almost mythical reverence for their regent. Great Khanates may come and go, sometimes 2 or 3 in a year, but they seldom lose their thrones to an angry populace. The weaknesses, though, Crag has little power. He can be sure of having his orders obeyed only when an unexpected crisis develops or when no goblin chiefs are around to oppose him. Even then, he must be careful how he acts or suffer for it later. Crag, like many goblins who rise to positions of power, is consumed with his own self-importance. He often forgets that the chiefs who pull his strings don't respect or fear him. This leads to some ugly and humiliating confrontations. Rumors about the Great Khanate's real status have started circulating throughout the realm. This fills Crag with fear. If it becomes widely known that he holds no real power, the Council of Chiefs will have no recourse but to replace their puppet with a real Great Khanate. Otherwise, the goblin population of Kal Kalathor would undoubtedly rebel. So, lieutenants of the 37 tribes of Kal Kalathor, 15 chiefs at most have any influence with the Great Khanate's council. These can be considered lieutenants of the Great Khanate or perhaps vassals, but they are actually ruling the realm using Crag's name and position as they see fit. So, current plans. Prompted by a few of his quote-unquote advisors, the Great Khanate ordered his troops to take back two of Kal Kalathor's western provinces, which, according to most sources, lie just within Molotchev's eastern border. They have succeeded in taking Kermansk and have established footholds in two of Molotchev's other provinces. This has made the Great Khanate even more popular with his people. Goblins do like conquering other races, and he appears willing to send more armies if that will keep him in power longer. But again, kind of smoke and mirrors with things, right? Now, as far as armies go, and again, this is not a realm for PCs to run, but just here's what the DM kind of has at their disposal. While goblins and hobgoblins don't make the best military troops, a lot of goblins live in Kal Kalathor, and nearly all of them expect to serve in their realm's armies at some time or another. Because of their tribal structure and their nature, warlike yet subservient, Kal Kalathor's goblins can raise a large standing army in a time of crisis at half the cost usually necessary, which is kind of scary. While troops raised in haste seldom perform as well as those trained over time, they usually suffer negative morale modifiers, etc. Goblins as a race fight fairly well. So, according to some reports out of Molotov, Rovninodensk, Berhagen, and Kumbane, the Great Khanate has a sizable force at all times, and this is pretty impressive even compared to any of the comparable human realms. This is a lot of force here, right, with the ability to probably almost double that if they really wanted to sort of put everybody to work in that sense. 18 units of goblin infantry. That is a lot. They can essentially just throw bodies at the problem and kind of make it go away in a lot of cases. 6 units of goblin archers and 6 units of goblin cavalry. So covering more or less all the goblin type of units, no necessarily elite guard type unit or sort of other like named unit. But again, that could be something the DM comes up with after a time. But nonetheless, just huge quantity, right? So we got basically 30 units there for someone to deal with. The Great Khanate needs to pay these troops only half the maintenance costs listed in the Birthright rulebook, but must leave at least one unit in every province in which he has a law holding, or lose a level of law each domain turn. The troops are paid the reduced rate. Goblins are a naturally fractious lot, and fight among themselves if not watched closely. If the Great Khanate musters more units, he need only pay half the normal mustering cost. So yes, we do have to kind of leave some token forces behind to keep things kind of somewhat peace-like and from getting out of hand. But nonetheless, we can still take like 15 to 20 or so units and project that somewhere. To the casual observer, the steppes and moors of Kal Kalathor look virtually uninhabited. A few huts and small farms exist on the surface of the realm. Small packs of goblins can occasionally be seen roaming the land, foraging for food or searching for slaves. But casual observers don't survive well in Kal Kalathor. The realm is riddled with pit traps. All but 2 of the Goblin Kingdom's provinces house most of the population underground. Dirty, smelly, filth-ridden holes, these caverns nevertheless provide natural protection for the goblins. All holdings in Kal Kalathor, with the exception of those in Snogatroy and Zuzurk, are considered fortified. All are connected, with those 2 exceptions, by underground tunnels that serve as roads, which again also can let them really attack from any angle. So really the goblins should be able to surprise people most of the time, if should they be foolish enough to really invade. And some nasty surprises to maybe spring on some PCs that are maybe trying to track or hunt down certain goblins or something like that. And really should be a cause for like PCs to I'd say, if they were venturing in the realm and causing trouble, like just regularly get ambushed. Anyway, slaves taken by the goblins will get to know those irregular, unpleasant tunnels well. Only slaves work outside on surface farms or as herders to the goblins' pigs, sheep, and cattle. Non-goblins, especially dwarves, because they're good at it, and elves, because they hate it, are put to work delving and repairing the underground layers of the goblins. Other things to consider here: important sites. Many important sites are throughout Kal Kalathor, but non-goblins would only know a few. The capital, the one place in the realm that non-goblins are occasionally welcome, as something other than slaves. The above-ground city of Kal Kalathor, the Goblin City, stands within sight of both Lake Ladon and the mysterious Mistmoor. When this Goblin City opens its gates for business, traders and adventurers from Molokev, Rovninodensk, Rezlev, and sometimes even Berhagen come to visit. Here, slaves, herd beasts, and foodstuffs can be bought and sold at the famous Goblin Market, and those friendly to the realm may be invited to share in the Great Khanate's Council, a party disguised as a political affair that can last for days or weeks at a time. Still, even in Kal Kalathor, a visitor must watch his step. Unaccustomed to deferring to goblins, hobgoblins, and other humanoids, a Voss warrior or Brecht merchant may find himself outnumbered and in serious trouble if he steps on the wrong toes. Even obeying the goblin's oft-conflicting rules of conduct is no guarantee of safe passage. Today's honored guests may find themselves to be tomorrow's auction block slave. Cities. Each of the most important tribes of Kal Kalathor controls a sizable underground settlement. The Snagatroy tribe rule an above-ground swampland fortress. This fort, built on a giant rock island near the center of the province, is home to the sorcerer of Snog. Her ludicrous title belies her fierceness, and rumor has it she's been studying necromancy as well as traditional wizardry, which should be a cause for concern. If so, she may be attempting to defend the swamp's province's borders with undead creations rather than just her goblin soldiers. Other sites here, the elves of Kumbane seldom venture into the province of Zerk, even though the goblins of Kal Kalathor shun its shadowed wood. Once, the hunters of the Grasping Claw braved the borders of the Elven Wood in the hopes of gathering a few Sithe slaves, but even they no longer venture beneath the forest's eaves. Some say a strange presence, maybe an elven ghost, if such things are even possible, haunts these woods. Those few goblins who live within the province stay well away from the forest and the tunnels beneath the wood. It is said the elf haunt of Zerk can move above or below ground at will, so it could be a fun place to explore and adventure for some PCs. Other things, then, important NPCs. The High Priest of Magglubiet, Gorin Split-Tongue, is perhaps the single most powerful goblin in Kal Kalathor, but even he walks on eggshells in the volatile realm. Balancing the rivalries inherent in the goblin pantheon has proven a full-time task for Gorin, and he employs several vassals, priests of 3 other goblin deities. We got Bar Griviek, Kurgobayeg, and Nomog Giaya. He even has a henchman devoted to the service of Ela, the goddess of thieves. Has some appeal for goblin kind, something to consider there. Though he holds more influence throughout the realm than the tribal chieftains, Gorin would be a fool if he didn't respect or fear that group. He knows the truth about the Great Khanate and the goblin tribes, but publicly plays up the Khanate's historic and mythic powers within the realm. He does this to keep the goblin population happy, but also to balance the influence of the tribal leaders. The goblins of Kal Kalathor are not a particularly religious lot, and given a choice between following the orders of their tribal leaders or obeying Gorin's spiritual commands, majority would probably follow the secular power. The one advantage Gorin gains is that nearly all goblins of Kal Kalathor recognize his not insubstantial priestly powers. His realm spells have, on occasion, greatly benefited or decimated provinces in the realm. Alright, continuing on. Perhaps that is why the sorcerer of Snog, Hogleg Fireeyes, actively discourages the organized worship of goblin deities by Snagatroy tribesmen. She successfully campaigned against the Shrine of the Yellow Fang in Snagatroy and a few neighboring provinces, hoping to dilute Gorin's power. The strategy has worked so far. The sorcerer of Snog commands at least as much fear and respect as the goblin temple regent, and her magical power backs up her position, as well as her influence with the populous Snagatroy tribe. So not only do you have the normal kind of goblin infighting, but here now it's a contest of wizardly versus priestly magic too. Essentially, who can sort of scare the populace more effectively with their magic powers. Unlike other goblin tribes, though, the Snagatroy allow goblins and hobgoblins to join their clans as something other than low-ranked workers or slaves. If a goblin exiled or shunned by his old tribe were to retreat into Snagatroy territory, he would need only to bring a few hundred gold pieces or some substantial trade goods with him. The tribe would welcome him with open arms and accept him into the fold. This practice angers many other goblin tribal leaders and regions, especially Korgul Ironwhip, A level 6 fighter, level 7 thief, pretty impressive, with a small bloodline of the Muckraker Guild, and Foreg Elf Hands, a very high level thief. They're level 9 of the Grasping Claw. The two guild masters work together as much as any ambitious goblins ever do. From different tribes and even different goblin races, Foreg's a hobgoblin. They enjoy a partnership of mutual benefit. Foreg captures, breaks, and trades slaves, while Korgul masters them and chains them to the land. They provide each other with a valuable service and trade goods, and then dislike the fact that Hogleg seems to need neither from them. With her open province for a price policy, she extends her protection to include escaped slaves and outlaws who would be slaves, as long as they can steal the required fee or prove themselves worthwhile servants. Privately, the two guild masters have vowed to bring down Hogleg Firearms when they can, but both fear her power. The fact that she's allowed the Muckrakers to run a swamp farm in Snagatroy, providing the goblin market of Kalmerthan with several of its most outstanding herbs and exotic foods, has bred a little dissent between the two guildmasters as well. So again, layers and layers of infighting with the goblins. And then, as always, we get to the end here, and again, I love the included DM secrets here, which should have been something that they included, throughout. But again, we never got like a DM secret series as part of like the publishing cycle versus like the player series. A dangerous realm full of unpredictable humanoids, Kal Kalathor can be a land of adventure for the strong, cunning hero. A hero king who rides against the goblins, even at the head of an army, is likely to meet defeat before they ever see the foe, but a clever, scruple-free hero might find the goblin realm worth visiting. And again, kind of a challenge too for players if you're looking for just like some good like hack and slash and dealing with goblins as like an enemy type. This is definitely some an interesting realm to potentially take on, but not without risk. Rumors tell that Terra Knife, the human assassin who helped bring the great Khanate to power, never actually left. Not satisfied with the humiliating not satisfied with humiliating Crag Murphing and escaping the Khanate's clutches, Terra Knife may be poking around the realm, looking to weaken its hierarchy even more. He may have offered his services to one or more of the less influential chieftains, and could be planning to kill the great Khanate's council, chieftain by chieftain, and shaman by shaman until chaos ensues. And that could be an interesting little mystery too. Starting maybe with just random goblin small-time leaders start disappearing of various kinds and just breeding chaos, essentially, as it says. And that could be something too, where maybe the players are starting to engage in some goblin removal and maybe get mistaken for Terra Knife, and that kind of builds this reputation up for them, and then maybe like the real Terra Knife shows up. But while most goblin heroes hardly care whether Kal Kalathor remains stable, it should be noted that, with the exception of the recent invasion of Molochev or the occasional raid into neighboring lands, the large goblin realm has remained amazingly neutral over the last couple centuries. If tribal chiefs start turning up dead at the hands of a human assassin, the survivors could go on a rampage, leading their warriors against any and all neighboring nations. So, and that would be the one thing, once the trigger is pulled on this, it would be hard to maybe get that under control. But again, wonderful bit of chaos for just that whole region. That could be something too, where maybe making it seem that the destabilization here is coming from one of the Anshe realms, to maybe get the goblins to turn on one of the Anshe realms, and maybe kind of solve two problems at once there by dealing with both of them, by just significantly weakening both realms. It could be pretty potent. Also, the goblin market has become somewhat famous and infamous throughout the region as a place to acquire anything or anyone. Goblin thieves offer their services openly at the market and can be hired to perform their trade in any nearby realm. Items from Brechtur, Vosgard, and the Kinasi lands appear in Kalmerthan on a regular basis, and even treasures from faraway Annuir and Rurik can be acquired by the careful shopper. Recently, a Kinasi noblewoman and her entourage disappeared while traveling through through northern Kozlovnie. It was thought that raiders from Molochev or rebellious factions in the civilized Voss realms disposed of them, but rumor has it that the entourage survives and its members will be auctioned off at the market. The Tsar of Kozlovny, eager to gain the noble's freedom, has offered 10,000 gold pieces to anyone willing and able to go to Kalmurthan and free the prisoners before they're sold to goblins or other evil Voss slavers. This will pose no small problem, though. While travelers may make their way to Kalmurthan for the goblin market, as long as they pay all those tolls, the noblewoman herself will probably go for at least 5 or 6,000. Sorry, not 5 or 6,000 bars, but 5 or 6 gold bars or the equivalent. The heroes may have to engineer an escape or exercise some other options if they're going to free her and her courtiers. So again, could be an interesting hostage rescue too, and maybe coming up with some other gold and other stuff along the way. But that could be a fun sort of delve into the goblin realm, and maybe PCs lose some of the money along the way and have to come up with other plans, and things just go from like this careful escape plan, stealth mission ends up just going south at every turn, and then it's just a race to leave and escape. So that could be a fun chase as well. Finally, here are the last little bits. In an unusual effort to pacify his human neighbors, the great Khanate has offered a deal to the Tsar of Malchev. He will send 3 units of goblin infantry to serve in the army for 2 years, and the Khan will even pay the maintenance cost. In exchange, Malchev will cede possession of Kermansk and Zuluk to the goblins, but the Tsar will be allowed to keep his law holdings in those provinces. So, interesting deal there, right? It seems on the surface unlikely that the Tsar will accept those terms, but he may negotiate. The great Khanate, at the very minimum, wants to gain Kermansk and does not mind spending a few goblin lives on the project. The Tsar, on the other hand, might be willing to cede control of the provinces for now and then decimate them later when he builds up his magical power even more. In the meantime, he would gain the service of 3 goblin military units. And then this could give Malchev some interesting options. If goblin raiders attacked Kozlovny, Berhagen, and Rogard, or even Inishir, how could the Tsar's fellow regents blame him? So kind of like a pseudo-false flag there. Even if the goblins came out of Malchev's territory and attacked its enemies, Tsar could claim that his forces tried to stop them but were surprised. Tsar Drago could use these forces to raid and weaken his neighbors and test their defenses with little risk to himself, right? So a lot of sort of inter-realm intrigue there, and that really is something that, unlike some of the other realms that we've looked at, where a lot of the conflict tends to be internal with some things going on between the neighbors here. This one is an option that really could threaten to sort of ignite the powder keg of what the various enmities are between the different realms there, and in this case, with the one Tsar trying to build up some power by sort of sneakily employing a deal here with these goblins. So couple that with, again, the bit there about the assassin maybe starting to decimate goblin leaders, and sort of then at some point maybe even unleashing sort of the fury of the realm here, the goblin realm, on its neighbors in full force, really would serve for some just pure chaos and some dangerous times all around. So not just between these realms, but then maybe, drags in the Anshe realms and everything else. So just a giant powder keg. But that is a big tour here through Kal Kalathor. So a lot going on, right? We've seen Goblin realms before, but this is kind of the biggest, most powerful one. But a little bit, or quite unlike its western neighbor there with like Thurazor, if you remember from way back. So lots of potential here for adventuring. Again, not a realm for PCs to run, certainly, but again, bordering on so many of the neighbors that we've already covered here. So this helps fill in the gap, too, of what one of these other major threats is. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll have more Birthright for you soon.